We are about to begin this session. The guests who are standing behind, please take your seats. We are starting the session. Thank you very much.
I would like to request our panel members to remain at their seats. I would like to request our session chair of this session, SME's Development, to come over to the dais for his speech.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Mohammad Masudur Rahman, Chairperson of SME Foundation of Bangladesh. I am going to chair today's session. This session title is Leveraging SMEs for Vibrant Supply Chain Linkage and Productivity Spillovers. We do have a number of panelists today with, who are going to discuss about these topics, and after this discussion we do have a question and answer session. Therefore, I am not going to wasting time because we are late to start our session. So I am welcoming all of the guests of today's panel session. Today we have with us as a moderator Mr. Kamran T. Rahman, former President of Employer Foundation and Senior Vice President, Metropolitan Chamber and Commerce Industry. Today's keynote speaker, Mr. Dr. Mohammad Mofizur Rahman, Managing Director, SME Foundation. Our panelists are Mr. Mohammad Samir Sattar, President, Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Mr. Mohammad Mahbubullah Alam, President, Chattogram Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Abu Farah Mohammad Nasser, Deputy Governor, Bangladesh Bank. We do have with us Mr. Dr. Khandokar Ghulam Muazzam, Research Director, Center for Policy Dialogue, CPD, Mr. Sami Ahmed, Managing Director, Startup Bangladesh. And I am very glad to announce that we do have with us Her Excellency Ms. Hana Muhammad Hasim, High Commissioner to Bangladesh of Malaysia with us. We do have a guest of honor with us. His name is Mr. Raj Kishore Bunjun, Acting Permanent Secretary, SME Division, Ministry of Industrial Development, SME and Cooperatives, Mauritius. Our chief guest today is Mr. Dr. Samsul Alam, State Minister of Planning of the Government of Bangladesh. So I am welcoming all of the guests of this session and as well as the audience. So therefore, with this brief introduction, I like to give the space to Mr. Kamran T. Rahman to start today's session. Thank you very much.
Professor Masudur Rahman, Chairperson of this session, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Kamran Rahman, and I will be the moderator for this session on leveraging SME development for vibrant supply chain linkage and productivity spillovers. We have with us, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mofizur Rahman, Managing Director of SME Foundation, who will make a keynote presentation, and thereafter we will have a distinguished panel of discussants to make their comments and observations. As panelists, we have amongst us today Mr. Mohammad Samir Sattar, President of Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We have with us Mr. Mahbubul Alam, President of Chittagong Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Abu Farah Muhammad Nasser, Deputy Governor, Bangladesh Bank, who is particularly, I understand, looking after SME affairs. Mr. Ravin Ram Prasad. Are you here, sir? No? Okay. Dr. Khandokar Ghulam Muazzam from Center for Policy Dialogue. Mr. Sami Ahmed, Managing Director of Startup Bangladesh Limited. We also are honored to have amongst us Her Excellency Ms. Hasna Muhammad Hashim, High Commissioner of Malaysia in Bangladesh. Ladies and gentlemen, Bangladesh has come a long way since we were termed, unfortunately, as a bottomless basket case, which most of you probably remember. However, today, we are the 35th largest economy in the world and the second largest in South Asia, with a GDP of $525.27 billion and a per capita income of $2,793 as per World Bank data for the year 2022. Bangladesh economy has experienced robust economic performance during the last few years. It will formally transition into a middle-income country in 2026, and we hope to become an upper middle-income country by 2031, and we also aspire to become a prosperous, developed, and a high-income trillion-dollar economy by 2041. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are here to discuss SME development in this journey, and we are also here to discuss the SME's contribution to our economy. So without further ado, I now invite Mr. Mofizur Rahman, Managing Director of SME Foundation, to make his keynote presentation. Mr. Mofizur Rahman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Moderator, panel discussant, guest of honor, and Her Excellency Ms. Hasna Muhammad Hashim, High Commissioner to Bangladesh of Malaysia. Dear Chair, Honorable Chair and the audience, I am taking permission from you at the beginning, at the outset, that I have to take a bottle of water time and again because I am a patient of vertigo. I am taking a lot of medicine for that reason. My mouth is dried up, so I have to take water. Please excuse me for that reason. You know, today's topic is leveraging SMEs for vibrant supply chain linkage or productivity spillovers. Actually, what does it mean by this topic? It is not very easy, or it will be meaningless if we make the meaning word by word. Rather, it is a whole picture of the SMEs contribution that is spread over the case of supply chain and productivity. And MSMEs are the vibrant contributor of economic lifeline of any country. That means this is the thrust of the SMEs throughout the whole globe, not in Bangladesh, not in America, not in UK. It is the picture. So how important it is, we would like to mention here that how the topic is very important for us. Just started. Sorry, very sorry. I hope it will be reducing subsequent, inshallah. I would like to give a snapshot of the SMEs of Bangladesh. We have all these figures a little bit back, 2013 by BBS. We have total 7.8 million SMEs, including cottage and micros. 7.3 million persons are engaged in the SME sector. Contribution of the GDP, though it was mentioned 25%, I do not believe this figure. I think it is much more, around it will be 27%, because it was the figure 5-6 years ago. And about 2.2 million people enter the job market every year, and we could actually employ 0.7 million, rest 1.5 million remains out of job or the work. This is the information by the World Bank. CSMEs plays a pivotal role in massive and balanced employment generation throughout the whole country. Imagine if each CSME accommodates at least one unemployed people each year, and unemployment scenario would have been decreased significantly. So it is very clear. I do not, as because time is very short, I have to run, I think. I will not be able to explain a lot of things. Even I have to touch upon some of the slides. What is the international perspectives of the SMEs? You see, the World Bank said, estimates that SMEs account for 90% all of the businesses worldwide and 50% of the employment. Formal SMEs contribute up to 40% of the GDP in emerging markets, provide 70% of the employment. It was the report of May 2022. In the World Economic Outlook, April 22, International Monetary Fund, IMF, projected that the global economy will grow by 3.6% both in 2022 as well as 2023. Sorry. And East Asia and Pacific accounts for the largest share, 46% of the total global finance gap. You can imagine, the East Asia, including Bangladesh, global financial gap is 46%, is followed by Latin America and Caribbean, 23 and 15%. In case of Bangladesh, over a decade, crossing 7% milestone from 2015-16, 8% will be 18-19. However, the COVID-19 pandemic reduced our GDP growth 3.45 in the year 1920. The economy grew 6.94% in the last year, 2021. Again, some other information. According to the Bangladesh Economic Review, what it was said in 2022, according to the provisional estimate of BBS, per capita GDP and per capita national income stood respectively 2,723 and 2,824, and just immediate before Mr. Kamran reported that last year it is already crossed 2,900. So actually our GDP is growing very fast and quickly. The consumption increased 78% in the 2021, that was 74.66 in the 2021. The gross investment is to 31.68% of GDP 2021, where the public investment and private investment share was 7.62 and the 24.06%. Mid-term forecast of the GDP growth rate will be 7.45% in 2023, 22-23, 7.8% in the 23-24, and we are expecting that it will be 8% in 24-25. The point-to-point, actually, inflation in March 2020 was 6.22%, that it was in 5.47% the last year. The country external debt outstanding at the end of February 2020 was 55,826 million, that is 12.23% of our total GDP. And one information is that Bangladesh never failed to repayment its installment any time in its history. So we have a very good track record of repayment all the debts. Just I have given you some information here. You see some of the which sector is contributing which. I have the information from 70 to 73, and then it was 19 and 20. The last it was agriculture. Initially agriculture was the first, and subsequently agriculture down, and then service sector and industry sector. Right this moment, industry sector is contributing more than 36%, and service sector 51%, and agriculture is 13%. Out of this 36% of the total industry, SME sector is contributing, what I have said, more than 25% earlier. Why SMEs are crucial for the national development? Why today's discussion? Almost all industries and enterprises are SMEs, more than 99%. And initially I have said that 90% of the whole globe economy is run by the CSMEs. And in our cases, it is 99%. Most of the potential export and import substitute industries, including subcontracting and backward linkages industries, are the SMEs. SMEs play a significant role in economic transition, agro to industry. Entrepreneurial spirit and trend have got momentum by the last 7 to 10 years, and a lot of new, I think I should say that the fresh graduates are coming for entrepreneurship development, particularly for the agroeconomy. Bangladesh is still a labor-abundant country, and we have the demographic dividend. You know, all we know that it will be until 2040, we have that opportunity we shall have to utilize. SMEs could play a pivotal role in achieving the government vision, goal, targets by employment generation, women empowerment, poverty alleviation, balanced economic and social development for a smart Bangladesh in 2041. Potential of the SMEs potential of SMEs are yet untapped. Why I am saying like this? SMEs will work as a backward and subcontracting industry in large industries and also EPZ, special EPZ and FDIs. Huge opportunities for the FDIs, automobile, the sectors are automobile, light engineering, plastic, electric, leather, jute-based products, agro-based products, and so on. A scope for export-oriented directly and indirectly and import substitute industry. SMEs could have served domestic demand. We have a huge internal market, about 170 million people in Bangladesh itself. And then that is much more than many European countries together. Educated young graduates that I have mentioned earlier, including the women, are aspiring to become an entrepreneur. Education rate also increasing. Huge number of semi-skilled and unskilled workforce we have in our country. Increased policy supports also is given from the government. So all of the factors actually helps to be an entrepreneur, small cottage, micro and small industries, but we could not tap all these things still today, but we are trying. What are the growth factors? Make the SME sector a high potential. You see, we have a very good, many coherent policy right this moment. We have existing industrial policy, SME policy, motorcycle policy, light engineering sector policy, automobile policy, shipbreaking policy, and many more policies are under in the pipeline. So from this perspective, we can say we have very good policies. We need to utilize these policies to become an entrepreneur or to create new entrepreneurs, including women entrepreneurs. Demographic dividend, I need to explain. We have mega projects, you know, all Padma Bridge, flyover, metro rail, Karnopoli tunnel, Matarbari, deep seaport, and many big project is coming. It will help actually to rebuild our economy, but in the ground, we have to be the CSMEs. We have a startup fund government created. We have National Development Authority, NSDA, and many skill councils. So we have huge scope to build our nations and skill nations, skill youth. We have in our first perspective plan, 2008 to 20, Bangladesh has been achieved a digital Bangladesh. And now we have the second perspective plan from 21 to 2041 for a smart Bangladesh that it was declared by our Honorable Prime Minister. This plan and also 8th five-year plan is running to complete the agenda achieving social and economic transformation visualized in the second perspective plan, and this plan would also be instrumental in attaining Sustainable Development Goal SDGs, realizing Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100 for smooth transition following the LDC graduation. So you can see that how prospect we have in our future, but we need to utilize by creating many entrepreneurs in our country. Just I will give you a snapshot of SME policy. This policy was actually passed 2019 for 19 to 2024, just 1 year and a bit lower than 2 years left. And the target was to contribute of the SMEs in our GDP from 25 to 32%. But I think it will not be possible to reach that target immediately by 2024. We are trying. Implementation strategy, there are 18 strategies was set in the policy. There are many implementing agencies. Main agencies are the BISIC. You know that Bangladesh Small and Cottage Industries Corporation as well as SME Foundation. And there are altogether 35 ministry and 20 non-government organizations are working to implementing these SME policies. What is in the 8th five-year plan? In 8th five-year plan, it is clearly stated that institutional and financial support to CSMEs will be vastly enhanced through the conversion of SME Foundation into a small business agency SBA like as USA. To serve a one-stop shop to promote CSMEs working closely with the Bangladesh Bank and on the financing side. Either it will be SBA or not, that is not the question. SME Foundation is working hard to reach all our CSMEs, including Bangladesh Bank, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Industries. We are working together. In this 8th five-year plan, there are 7 pivotal themes. What are that 7? Promote labor-intensive, export-oriented, manufacturing-led growth, along with expansion of the domestic market, promote agricultural diversification, infuse dynamism in the CSMEs, strengthen modern service sector, push export non-factor services, promote ICT-based entrepreneurship, embracing 4th industrial revolution, and strengthen overseas employment. So all these very good things are incorporated in the 8th five-year plan. Now we need to implement all these pivotal themes. We have some clusters. You know that SME Foundation has identified 177 clusters back in 2013. And what does it mean by the cluster? Within the 5-kilometer radius, if there are more than 50 same type of manufacturing units belongs over there, then we declare it as a cluster. So we have identified, SME Foundation identified 177 clusters in 2013, and then we have make the need assessment of the 80s. Now we are working with at least directly or indirectly with 40 clusters. Our plan is to actually work all these clusters. Because of the resource constraints, we cannot work all. What we do over there? Need assessment, training, skill development, marketing linkage, networking, subcontracting, technology and ICT product support, policy advocacy, infrastructure development, say, for the common facility centers. So all these, actually these are the way we have supporting our clusters. I am going very fast because I have 36 slides I have to complete by another, I think, 10 minutes. Special EPZs and the EPZs have to create new employment. You know, the government has established a lot of EPZs, special EPZs and BEZA and BEBZA, and also 100 new special economic zones, including some private EPZs also, to create 20 million new employment within these, all these special economic zones. You see, due to from the figure, if you see the green is the contribution non-national export, and you see the export from the blue is the EPZs. That means the export increase in the EPZs increase our national export baskets. That means there is a huge contribution of these EPZs and especially EPZs. If we can establish 100 and then work all these things, it will help us a lot, and our economy will be boosted up further. SME is the key source of the women employment. We know that 50% of our population is the women, but where are the jobs? I mentioned earlier the 0.7 million we can employ in almost every year, and more than 1.2 million actually rest out of the job. In that case, it is the only place where, including the women, we can make self-employment, entrepreneurship development. So it will help to create entrepreneurship to gender equality, women empowerment, social development, also to maintain the economic progress ecosystem in our country. According to the IFC 2016, 7.2% of the business are women-led. And as per the study conducted by Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, they said that the number of women entrepreneurship has been increased 127% in last decade. 36% women labor force, that is 40% in the Asian countries. We are a little bit below over there. And government, through its different agencies providing special support for women, including earmarked tax benefits and low-cost financing. We are trying SME Foundation to provide, just one figure I would like to mention here, the national average for the women financing in the SME sector is roughly less than 6%, but we do SME Foundation could reach at least almost 29% of our 300 crore stimulus package to our women entrepreneurs. MSMEs have huge potentials to export and could play a vital role in transforming and reducing the employment and increase our export and export dependency from RMG to other sectors. How? Opportunities in transforming from our RMG. Bangladesh has been most of its export, almost 80% is coming from the RMG. It is opinion from the Ms. Marcy Tembon, former country director of the World Bank in Bangladesh. She said, Bangladesh's success in RMG export has created about 4 million jobs and driven economic growth. But in recent years, job creation in the RMG sector slowed down due to automation, and the trend will likely accelerate in the post-pandemic world. So actually this is going to happen as because of the fourth IR and also automation. This creates an urgent need for Bangladeshi manufacturers to shift gears from competing on low labor-intensive productivity to competing on higher productivity. That it was one of the part of the topics. MSMEs with some potential sectors have come forward to minimize the challenges and gaps. Diversified jute goods, leather, agro-processing, handicrafts, and etc. have shown an increased trend in the export that we can actually increase much more. Our Honorable Prime Minister, while inaugurating the Bangladesh Trade and Investment Summit back in 2021 at the Bangabandhu here in BICC, she said, we have to find out through market research what new items we can produce to boost up our export. We need to focus on that. I quote again, I think we need to increase the number of items in our export basket. Bangladesh is a country that can do, within bracket, produce anything if we want, unquote. So these are the, I think I have to go only 2 minutes. So I will not explain. So what our Prime Minister said, that we need to increase we can produce and we can export. You see here some figure, how much we are getting from the RMG and how much for non-RMG sectors. I have given only another 2 minutes time. So I have to, quickest runner. Jute goods, golden fiber of Bangladesh. We have huge export. I will not explain anything. You know all these things. And jute goods is now actually the big demand throughout the whole globe. Leather products, I can give you the challenge, those who are going for buying shoes and everything, leather bags, parts from Europe or Italy, you can buy it from here, from Bangladeshi producers. Wonderful. Just you can check, go to Hazaribagh and any other shops, you will find high quality jute leather products. Export earnings from handicrafts, you see it is increasing. Here is also a huge potentials to export further. Agro food processing, we have the same possibility of increasing. It is also increasing. We have witnessed 41% rise to export, that 374 million in the last fiscal year. We have huge potentials to increase also high value agricultural products. We have a new zones where we can do, China is a big market. We have huge potential to export over there. You see Bangladesh, in many cases, the blue is we are exporting to China, the orange one, we have the another further scope. So you can utilize this full score, then the export in China will be much more. Middle East countries, the maximum Muslims, and we can have many, we have the test, and also I should say that taste and preferences are more as like as same, in that case we can have a huge scope to export in China, Middle East countries. We have halal food, we can also export in the Middle East and other parts. You know, the halal food is now actually almost everywhere, even in Europe and America, they are also looking for the halal foods because it is scientifically healthy. SMEs could unlock, unpack and the untapped potentials of the seven sisters, actually very close to our Bangladesh. We can have a huge market possibility, potentials in the seven sisters, in the, that means the seven provinces of India. SMEs could have much more positive impact on GDP growth. How? Positive and a strong causal relationship. SMEs, number of SMEs is more high, then the productivity and the GDP growth is also high.
Sir, can I request you to finish in 1 minute, please?
Yes, I can do. I can do, but in that case I am straight going to some of the challenges. SMEs have common tendency to be an informal and non-compliant, which makes them unable to get the services from the formal sectors. This is the common nature of our SMEs. Participant in the development partners is still less than the scopes, and international based practice, I mean the compliance, they are actually not willing to do. Actually, there are so many challenges, and finance is the most important, I should say, but many of our CSMEs cannot actually, we cannot include them in financing sector in full swing. Actually, I am going to finish because time was not given. Some more issues, but I will not mention here. What we need to do? Just stock taking of the existing actions, programs, and projects that prepare a combined and coordinated time-bound action plan. To all the ministries, divisions, we can work together. Ensure budgetary support on a regular basis, SME-based programs and development projects, capacity building programs also. Invite and include more development partners for SME development. Prioritize booster sectors with special package. Develop and improve value and supply chain management. Strengthen the capacity of human resources, business development service providers, focusing on rural industrial development. And we can take the example from India and Thailand. They have the ministry, they have the bank, and we can also support artisans as it was given by the India. They are supporting many different ways by their artisans. And finally, I would like to conclude here that the subsidy or the cash incentive for the SMEs is not a sustainable approach. Rather, we can do for the sustainable financing for them, easy to get the loans and credits so that they can utilize. Creating an ecosystem with conducive environment, that means to have the trade license, trade, bean certificate, tax, tin certificate, very easy to get it. And young generation to be entrepreneurs instead of chasing the wild goods or for the job. Regular budgetary allocation, a specialized bank for the SMEs, policy support with specific programs, strengthen BDS, business development service providers, relevant technical skill development and for sustainable productivity, strong supply chain mechanism including public procurement, SME-focused development project scheme in all government systems in a coordinated way, be with SMEs for a smart Bangladesh by 2041. Finally, I would like to quote from our father of the nation. No plan, however well formulated, can be implemented unless there is a total commitment on the part of the country, people of the country, and the rest actually I will not read. You see, this is the commitment is number one. So finally I could say, if we are committed, I mean the government and everybody, business community, we will be helping our CSMEs, definitely it will increase and it will be sustainable and we can reach our destination by 2041. Thank you very much. Thank you all for rushing. I am very sorry for that. Again, thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mofizur Rahman, for a comprehensive presentation on SMEs development, its present contribution, and its potential for the future. It is important to note that SMEs play a significant role in economic transformation from agro to industry and contributes today 25% of the GDP of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, we are actually in a very tight schedule, so I will try to go as fast as possible, and I will ask the relevant questions to our panelists. See, the World Bank estimates that SMEs account for 90% of all businesses worldwide and 50% of employment. However, formal SMEs contribute up to 40% of GDP in emerging markets and provide 70% of employment. That's overall for formal SMEs, but if you take into consideration all SMEs, it's going to be much higher. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now get straight to the panelists. I would first ask Barrister Muhammad Samir Sattar, President of Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Barrister Sattar, DCCI, as I understand, has worked and engaged extensively with SMEs. What opportunities do you think exist for SMEs with regard to supporting supply chains of larger local as well as foreign companies and in exports? Barrister Sattar.
Thank you, Mr. Rahman. Given the elaborate presentation given by Mr. Rahman, I'd like to thank him for giving us an elaborate presentation on the SME position. We all know that the SME's contribution to the economy, it is nothing new for us, the panelists here. 80% of the total employment in Bangladesh comes from SMEs. And the SME contribution to GDP stems around 30.4%. But despite such great contribution, we are unable to leverage SMEs to their full potential. And I'll very briefly deal with 3 challenges, then I will talk about 1 opportunity that the SMEs can take from here. So why aren't we able to leverage SMEs to their full potential in the supply chain management? The first challenge is weak integration to the supply chain system. Local SME integration is essential for a competitive business environment as well as a competitive business and advantage. The reason why I'm saying this is because soon enough we'll be approaching our LDC graduation in 2026. And if we do not prepare ourselves and if we do not prepare our SME sector accordingly, then we, as you all know, we will lose a lot of competitive advantages. So it's very, very important that we reap those benefits from local SME services and goods. So there's an issue of offset there. And we need a strong linkage policy between the SMEs as well as the large companies for backward linkage. The second challenge that SMEs face is primarily the skills capacity. We certainly need to reskill the SME workforce. So there is a dire need for the SMEs to be more technologically advanced, and digital awareness for these SMEs is absolutely crucial, because use of technology will be key in the future for creating an efficient supply chain management. So therefore, it is absolutely necessary for our SMEs to be trained in that respect. And why the SMEs cannot be trained in that respect is because their lack of finance. And we have our Bangladesh Bank representative here. SMEs always face difficulties in obtaining finance. We thank Bangladesh Bank because they have eased the loan documentation requirements for SMEs recently. But still a lot of work needs to be done and find out exactly why the access to finance is such an issue for SMEs. From Dhaka Chamber of Commerce, we have identified few issues, and we have already placed these proposals to the Bangladesh Bank, because Dhaka Chamber is primarily an SME-based chamber. So we have absolutely taken note of this with priority and placed our proposals to the Bangladesh Bank, and I'm sure Bangladesh Bank is already working on that issue. Now, talking about coming to the question, and I'm reminded that everyone needs to go for lunch, what opportunities are available? I think there is great scope of opportunity that is going to be available for the SME sector. This is because whoever's into industries and big, large companies, they will need to rely upon SMEs for their backward linkage, either today or tomorrow. As the global supply crisis stems from the Ukraine war, as the prices of many essentials of raw materials goes up, more and more challenges will be faced by these large companies. So it is absolutely crucial that they prepare themselves and work with the SMEs. So there is a big opportunity for SMEs coming in the future, at least the way I see it. Now, also, if you look at the recent monetary policy statement published by the Bangladesh Bank, I think the government is also trying to promote the SMEs, and there is a grant of 50,000 crore taka which has been given by the government for refinancing scheme for SMEs, CMSMEs, also import substituted industries, because that is very crucial. As more and more we face difficulties in importing items from abroad due to our shortage in currency, foreign currency, we need to make our local economy more self-reliant, more reliant on our local companies, so that we do not need to import these goods and services from abroad. So in this respect, I think the SME can play a very, very, very important role. Before I get reminded of the time, I'm going to stop here. And thank you very much, Mr. Rahman, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barrister Sattar. You've got very pertinent points. I'm not going to ask you questions now. And ladies and gentlemen, I prefer standing over here so that I can see all my panelists. If I sit over there, I can't see them when I'm talking to you. Next on my list is Mr. Mahbubul Alam, President of Chattogram Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Alam, SMEs play a significant role in the economic transformation from agro to industry and contributes today, as we have heard earlier, 25% of GDP of our country. Can we hear your thoughts on how can Bangladesh enhance contribution of SMEs in the GDP of our economy? Mr. Alam, can we request you to keep your intervention within
yes,
three minutes?
Time is short.
3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Kamran Bhai. Thank you, moderator and panelist. Actually, what you are thinking about, we are thinking about the SME. SME is the basic needs, foundation of a country. You see in Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, and other near country, India, they are totally dependent on SME. So SME is the basic bone of a nation. So we should encourage them, and we should definitely encourage the informal, those who are in the country. We try to keep in the formal sector. You see one thing, I give you one example. You see the bakeries of Bangladesh, small factories. Now they are struggling about their raw materials, but big short, they are importing their materials. But small bakeries, those who are doing these products, they are also struggling. Why they are not coming in the normal procedure? They are not coming in the normal procedure because of tax, because of VAT, because of etc., etc. If they come in the formal procedure, then it will be enhanced is our economy. You say the informal economy in our country is too large. We are talking about 40% formal economy, but I think it is more than that. You see in Kumilla, there is a fish collector. There is a group of people that are doing fish grower. But they are not in a formal sector. They have no trade license. They have no bank account. They are only doing their business in a sector. But if you want to come them into a formal sector, then they give the tax, VAT, and etc., etc. So I think if enhancement of the SME, definitely we need to come in the formal sector. Thank you very much, Kamran Bhai.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahbubul Alam. Next on my list is Mr. Abu Farah Muhammad Nasir, Deputy Governor of Bangladesh Bank. Sir, we hear of lack of finance and fiscal measures as huge challenges for SMEs. What initiatives has Bangladesh Bank taken in the recent past in order to support SMEs so that the sector appears and is actually, people feel that it's good to invest in SMEs? Sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and also the people who are on the podium, also my audience. As Moderator mentioned, I have been entrusted with the responsibility to explain what Central Bank has done and what may be done in future also. You know, in Bangladesh, after liberation, it was basically on agri-based country, and for this region, up to 2009, we have one department called Agricultural Loan and Special Function Department. And in the year 2009, so far I recall the regime of our former governor, Dr. Atiur Rahman, the time, the December 2009, we have started with the individual department called SME Department, SME and Special Program Department. And after that, Central Bank has announced a detailed program for all commercial banks how to finance in the SME sector. And you know, in the year 2020, the total world, including our country, have been affected by the pandemic. And considering this pandemic situation, to save our life and livelihoods, Central Bank has taken to formulate some special policies for the SME sector, and especially one called is, it is stimulus package. It is about 20,000 per year, and it has been continued for 3 years. That is, it includes 60,000 crore finance for the SME sector in our country. So Mr. Samir Sattar mentioned he is thinking about the finance constraints, but I declare today for the SME sector, you could not find any challenge for getting any types of financing from the Central Bank as well. You know, in this year, the new governor just took over the responsibility of the governor of Central Bank. Just after 7 days, we have been formulated another policy for working capital as well as for term loan for the SME sector especially, which is about 25,000 crore. Initially it was refinance scheme, but when you see in this period there are some constraints is happened in our commercial banks for this region, it converted into the pre-finance scheme, and from this scheme, by this time 6,884 crore has been disbursed to the banks for providing so kinds of loan to the SME sector. And I today declare on behalf of Bangladesh Bank, if all entrepreneurs are able to avail this fund, Central Bank will raise it up to 50,000 crore. And just being, I've seen here so many women entrepreneurs, you know, there are some special scheme for the women entrepreneurs, 1,500 scheme only for women, who only interest rate is 5%. So you can avail such kind of facilities from the Central Bank fund. As well as one problem for the SME sector, they have experience, but they don't have much more collateral, which actually commercial banks require for providing loans. For this region, we have been started with this special scheme of credit guarantee scheme, which is started with the help of our Ministry of Finance. So the people who have experience, who have real business of his own, he or she can take loan from the bank without providing any collaterals. Central bank will provide guarantee on behalf of you for the collateral purpose. So you go to the commercial bank for getting loan, for developing yourself, for developing our economy, for developing our SME sector. Our Honorable President, Chamber of Commerce, Chittagong already mentioned that one thing I again mention, we have started one startup fund. You know, two types of startup fund has been created by central bank. One 500 crore from the central bank fund and 500 crore from the commercial bank. 1%, they will transfer 1% of net profit every year for 5 years. So it will create another 500 crore. So startup fund is for the new one who just come from the universities or engineering universities. So the facility of the startup loan, I hope everybody will avail such kind of facilities from the central bank fund. Being time is not much more for me, I don't go furthermore, but one thing is that for developing the SME sector, we have taken some other initiatives for future. One is, you know, already been implemented nano lending, money that is called micro for originally digital lending. You can take loan within 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. And central bank has a plan to establish new digital bank by which it can be possible to lending loan without getting any collateral from our entrepreneurs in Bangladesh in future. I hope this will in place within this year, hopefully, or new month of the next year. So today I want to close this, my speech. Thank you very much for hearing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Nasser, for all the initiative that Bangladesh Bank has taken and for all the encouraging words that you made. Now may I now go to Dr. Khandakar Ghulam Moazem from Center for Policy Dialogue. Mr. Moazem, you have been involved in a lot of research as far as policies are concerned regarding our economy. Now, which policy support, in your mind, has been particularly instrumental for SMEs during COVID-19? And what steps do you think we can take to support SMEs in future?
Thank you, Chair.
In 3 minutes, sir.
Yes. I think we have heard the keynote presentation and how the government is formulated the SME-related policies that we also heard. So I think the COVID would be a test case that how those policies were functioning effective for SMEs to survive. And we have to actually take that into account, and we have to take lessons from the COVID period, how SMEs have experienced this COVID period, and what sorts of challenges they confronted, and what sorts of policy support they received during that time, and whether those are adequate enough for them to survive and to retain in the business. From that point of view, I think it is quite instrumental that government has provided fiscal, budgetary, and financial support of different kinds. Government has provided fiscal, budgetary, and financial support, which was a total over 1,28,000 crore or 29,000 crore, and after that, lots of other financial support has come. And if I just consider that period, how much the SMEs has received, and that was around 17% of the total financing that was provided by the by the government during that period, apart from when we consider that 99% of the farms are SMEs. So consider that it is not, I would say, adequate enough for their requirements. Though government, with its limited financial and fiscal support, has tried to support the SMEs during that period. Beside that, we have just heard that women entrepreneurs have also got support during that time. And also the refinancing facilities have also been set up during that time, and those have contributed to some extent. And the rate of interest also reduced for the SME related funding. So those also have contributed to the SMEs. But my point is that to what extent the SMEs are covered. Just I calculated from the keynote presentation, if in Bangladesh 7.8 million entrepreneurs are SMEs, and if they need 1 lakh taka each for funding, this 20,000 taka would cover only 1/3, less than 1/3 of the total SMEs financing. So you can easily understand that not all SMEs could be covered. Even it is being revolved for 3 years for 60,000 would not yet adequate enough for their coverage for the SME financing. So we have to realize that how much financing is required and what much has been provided by the SMEs is very, very important to understand. Beside that, I also like to mention here is that regarding our CPT studies, we found that only around 1 lakh SMEs have been got support up until May 2021, if I consider the key COVID period. Meaning that out of 78 lakh SMEs, only 1 lakh SMEs have been covered during the time with the support of 1,56,000 on average SME support. So you can easily understand that we couldn't actually cover all the SMEs. Though I appreciate that government has very quickly taken initiative for financing for both for the SMEs and also for the women entrepreneurs. Those are quite appreciable, but need to have further extension of those initiatives beyond the major key cities, because we have heard lots of cries from entrepreneurs from remote areas and entrepreneurs from different districts, how they have actually looked for fund and they didn't actually get funding during that crisis period. And we have to understand that during the time of COVID, the challenges have been evolved over time. In the first wave of COVID, mainly the informal entrepreneurs have been crushed. In the second wave, it was hard the SMEs and women entrepreneurs. And in the third wave, it has affected in the form of the digital device, lack of financial support for the women and other SMEs. So we couldn't actually provide those different kinds of waves and affect and thereby to support to the SMEs. So we have to think in the future that how to customize our financial products to reach upon the SMEs requirements during the time of different kinds of difficulties. But very unfortunate that we don't have adequate data and information. That's very, very needed for the central bank to formulate the customized product. So what I like to request to the SMEs is and the chambers and the government banks and other associations and organizations to formulate a supply chain based database for all the SMEs, so that it would be possible for the government to provide customized financial product and for support to the SMEs. Other than that, these kinds of generic kinds of financial support would be provided, and various kinds of large SMEs in the name of SME, large farms in the name of SMEs can get the support of that, and you will not get the benefit of it. So we need the data and information within the supply chain, who are working in which segment, what is their capital requirement, how much employment are there, and that sorts of information and the database are very, very needed for SMEs to survive during this time of crisis. That's urgently required.
Thank you.
Just 1 minute. Okay. If I could actually take the lesson from other countries, how they actually support to their SMEs. For example, in India, they have provided these kinds of collateral-free credit. Of course, they have provided. Other than that, they also provided support during the time of COVID. They have also provided support in the form of debt and equity infusion. They also provided that kinds of support to that. In case of Bangladesh, it is working capital financing, but they have provided equity support and debt infusion to survive their distressed SMEs. Also, they have provided support to income tax refunding And also they have provided insulating SMEs from insolvency. And emergency credit support have been provided there in India. And similar kinds of customized support was provided in Thailand as well. So we have to think in the future that what sorts of problems our SMEs are facing. And we need a demand side approach in terms of customizing the financial products, not that the supply side kinds of things to be imposed on the SMEs, so that lots of SMEs couldn't actually comply with the requirement. And we have found that the terms and conditions for getting access to the SME financing didn't actually change during the time of COVID and afterwards. But we need to think that during the time of crisis, SMEs also need a flexible terms and conditions. Otherwise, they cannot actually get access to those loans and facilities. So we have to think that what sorts of challenges they face and what sorts of financing need they have, and thereby customize our financial products towards their needs and demands. So if we can get experience of the COVID, we will definitely do better in the future. And I am sure the Bangladesh Bank and the commercial banks and also the government, Ministry of Finance and other organizations are very much supportive towards the direction. But we have to take lessons and we have to take actions towards that direction. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Ghulam Azam, for bringing out all these important issues. I'm sure Deputy Governor Bangladesh Bank has taken note of it, and I'm sure he's going to consider many of the points that have been raised. Now, we go to Mr. Sami Ahmed, Managing Director of Startup Bangladesh. Mr. Ahmed, we have got an internet backbone set up almost all over the country. And this is why I understand it has helped more than 750,000 IT professionals to work as freelancers. Now, can we hear your thoughts on how you can or you are maybe supporting these IT freelancers as well as SME growth in the technology-enabled space? I understand you are very, very involved with funding tech-enabled services. So, and what investment opportunities exist in this area? Sami, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you, moderator. I won't take too much time. I support a new breed of SMEs called startups. Okay. So what do startups do? They actually help SMEs grow. Right. Most startups in Bangladesh that we see, for example, Sheba XYZ. We have Shajib there, one of the co-founders of Sheba XYZ. Shajib, we want to raise your hand. So what they're doing is they're connecting CMSME and MSMEs to work orders, to helping them manage their inventory, to do payments. They work with more than 100,000 SMEs in that particular space, right? We have startups like Sheba. We have hundreds of startups in Bangladesh who are actually helping to enable SMEs grow. And that's why the startup growth in Bangladesh has happened actually from SME. We have seen, for example, ShopUp, one of the top startups in Bangladesh, raised about several $100 million of global funding. What do? They work with SMEs. They work with SMEs, manage their inventory, get their work order, give them credit, help them raise funds, a lot of things. So many of the problems that our panelists discussed regarding SMEs in Bangladesh are being addressed by startups in some way. They're getting access to microfinance, microcredit. I know NGOs do that, but startups have found a better, faster way to do it. Now the question is, are startups SMEs themselves? Many of them are. With the difference is that these startups are growing at maybe 5-10 times every year, year on year, right? Which is why we from the government, and Startup Bangladesh is the VC arm of the government of Bangladesh, we are investing in these innovative ideas that are helping, among many other sectors, SMEs to grow very fast, where the value of the investment actually you can realize it. It grows very fast, so whatever you invest, you get back a lot more in return. It's not only finance that we look at, we also look at the impact it has on society. So almost every of these startups, for example, we have a startup that works with farmers, right, and SMEs and farmers in the agriculture space, that's helping that sector grow. So definitely it has a lot of impact in society. So that's definitely an area where Startup Bangladesh on behalf of the government is investing. The other part where you asked the question about freelancing, and it has, since Digital Bangladesh Vision was declared, and we have seen a lot of growth in the infrastructure, especially internet and bandwidth going up to almost the village level we have, high-speed internet, has allowed for almost 700,000 plus freelancers working from Bangladesh. Not what we are saying, that's what Oxford Internet Institute is saying in the report. About 3-4 years ago, they said that 650,000 freelancers from Bangladesh, online workforce from Bangladesh, are providing service to everywhere in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm part of ICT Ministry, and I've been working with ICT Ministry for many years now. And what we do in that particular space is, one is helping these freelancers with skills, help develop the skill ecosystem. Now from Startup Bangladesh, I'm investing in startups that are working in the skill space, trying to train or develop the skills of all these individuals in Bangladesh to work in IT, to work in 4IR or 5IR or whatever skills that we're talking about. And then from ICT Ministry, we're also developing the backbone infrastructure, the global connections that they need in order to grow. Now, the big conversation that we have had together, and yes, many of these freelancers are part of the CMSME group because they're bringing in income and they also have requirement for funds. From Startup Bangladesh, we're investing in equity, but what about these very small micro entrepreneurs, right? They have the same problems that most SMEs do. That's where they need access to funding from what Bangladesh Bank, the Deputy Governor, was talking about. They need access to this funding, but they don't have any collateral to give for this funding. Right. Then how do we take care of that? And they are actually bringing a lot of foreign currency into the country. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of scope over there for us to work with them, to figure out ways how we can give them access to these loans that they need to purchase, let's say, a laptop, to purchase the tools that they need to deliver the work they're working online, right? Mm-hmm. Startups will maybe solve some of these problems, but one thing about startups is, just to give an example before I finish, let's say in the EdTech space, we have invested in a startup. From the government side, we invested 5 crore for equity into the startup, right? That startup has trained over 100,000 people in digital skills. How much fund do you think is required if we directly go into a training program like that? Hundreds of crores, right? But how is that startup able to do it? One, they're being able to do it smartly, and two, they're also being to mobilize private sector funding as well as global funding. Mm-hmm. $800 million of global funding have come into Bangladesh into startups, and that's what has been declared, maybe even more, right? So I think we'll see a lot of growth in the startup ecosystem, and we will also probably see a lot of growth in the number of freelancers we see in the country. Maybe with a little bit of policy support in the right area, I think there's a lot of scope in this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sami Ahmed. And that is very encouraging indeed for all IT professionals, startup companies, as well as these freelancers. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one last panelist amongst us today, Her Excellency Ms. Hasna Muhammad Hashim, Malaysian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Excellency, how do you see the opportunities in the horizon for Bangladesh with regard to private investments, including FDIs, particularly in SMEs? And what lessons can you share with us from your Malaysian experience?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to answer the second part of the question first regarding the Malaysian experience. Yes, indeed, SMEs also is the backbone of Malaysian economy. It made of 48% of the workforce in Malaysia, 97% of the business growth in Malaysia, 13.5% of the export in Malaysia, and also 38% of our GDP. So almost the same with Bangladesh. And during the peak of COVID, and we were under lockdown, the Malaysia provided our SMEs with a stimulus package. It was total up to more than $1 billion USD at the moment, and also 6-month moratorium and the credit card conversion balance to term loan, as well as the restructuring of the corporate loan. And also the government encouraged the digitalization of the SMEs. And we're grateful to God that now that even if we compare between the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic, the unemployment rate stays at below 3%. Previously, it was 3.3, and now just slightly increased to 3.6, made of about 600,000 of the population in Malaysia, which is still under control. I recall that when I wanted to assume my post in Bangladesh, that was at the end of the year 2020, I had to seek permission from the police station at that time in order for us to travel, to do the interstate travel in Malaysia in order for enable me to go to the airport. So we were very strict at that time in order to save life of the people of Malaysia, but regardless, we never closed our business. The door for business always open, and we grateful for our current growth right now. So now I go to the first part of the question regarding FDI. I wish to highlight that to attract the attention of all the panelists, especially I'm very honored to sit next to our Deputy Governor here, that SMEs is not a standalone entities. It always link up to FDI, for instance. And in this regard, I wish to highlight that the Malaysian government itself, actually, we are investing in Bangladesh through the subsidiary of our government-linked company. Namely, we have here E.co, we have Robi Axiata. And for instance, Robi Axiata, the cumulative value alone is more than 4.4 billion USD. And we contributed a lot, I think, to the Bangladesh economy. And also, they also launched our ventures. They funded a startup. So they are part of the system. And in terms of the employment, is 2,000 direct employment. And indirect employment, which would relate to SMEs, is more than a million, actually 500,000, 500,000, which is a lot, I think. And in this regard, I wish to humbly seek the consideration of the government of Bangladesh and the Deputy Governor also regarding the two issues which I wish to highlight very briefly. First one, in terms of the tax reform. And this is very important, I think, for the sustainability of the foreign investors in Bangladesh. For instance, regarding telecommunication, the tax is 2%, which is the turnover tax, which is even more than tax for cigarette, which is 0.5%. And I wish to seek humbly again for the Bangladesh government to look into this, because this really affects our sustainability of investment here. And secondly, also in terms of the consistency of the policy of the government, I think that is also very important in order for us to be assured in terms of our sustainability here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Excellency, for your words. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's getting late and we are standing between you and lunch, so we will try to be very quick. I can now invite just two questions maybe. I don't think we have much time from the audience. Please raise your hand if you have a question. I can take two. First gentleman over here. Can we have the microphone over here, please? And please introduce yourself and say who you're asking the question to.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. This is Murshid from Coxbazar Chamber of Commerce. Actually, it's my observation for last COVID stimulus package that declared by our Honorable Prime Minister. And government has a sincere effort and unprecedented actually initiative that's shown by the Prime Minister. 20,000 crore stimulus package that declared. My observation is that still we have to go more deep down, because it should be, SME should be separated from the medium entrepreneur and the small and cottage industry. Otherwise, the medium entrepreneur will take the advantage. On the other hand, it should be not generalized, it should be on district level, considering the demand-driven approach. SME should be there, and our entrepreneur still, they are in a haphazard way. How can we monitor them? What is the way out to empower the woman and entrepreneur? And one barrier is that we observe that most of the banks there are not visualized. The stimulus package that declared by the Prime Minister, it was not actually, most of the entrepreneurs, they don't know, especially women entrepreneurs. In my constituency, more than 95% women don't know where the stimulus package is. So where the monitoring mechanism from the central bank. On the other hand, we are talking about the banking facility and other, but main barrier is that know your customer. This is the main barrier that imposed by the local bank. We don't know you. Why you will give the fee financing? So there is a lot of barrier. We have to go for the research. We have to take some policy. And I think my observation, we have to separate medium entrepreneur from cottage and small entrepreneur. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Haq, the last question, please. The microphone, please.
Thank you very much.
Is that a question or an observation?
Just a little observation and a question.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very, very important session for Bangladesh, that the bottom of the pyramid is required to be looked more seriously in Bangladesh. As an advisor to the FBCCI and also an advisor to the Japanese investors, we have tried to upgrade the basic for the government agency for small and cottage industries to be upgraded to SME development agencies. Unfortunately, today when we don't see anyone from the Ministry of Industry and neither from the SME, the government administration. You see, I thank the Honorable Deputy Governor that Bangladesh Bank, rather, from the financial point of view, was innovative, and they have created certain policies that has really helped. But unfortunately, I feel I'm in agreement with another questioner who has made that at the bottom, there are huge potential for development of a small-scale business and medium-scale business in Bangladesh. The SME Foundation chairman was mentioning. My question now, are you going to think about what I think Her Excellency Malaysian High Commissioner is here? They have a total dedicated agency for the SME's development. Unfortunately, for last 30 years in the business, I don't see neither in the government Minister of Industry or neither we can call our Minister of Industry itself a Minister of Industrial Development. In Malaysia they have, in Japan they have, in Korea they have, in India they have. So, are the government is thinking really, sincerely, that we are for small-scale development of industry in Bangladesh? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haq. Who amongst the panelists do you want should respond to that? Anybody in particular? Okay. Okay. Just hold on. We need to have gender balance. I need a lady. Yes, the lady over there. Please.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the floor. This is Shahmina Isha. I'm a gender specialist at a USAID-funded project of Feed the Future trade activity. So my question to the esteemed panel is that we are in the month of March, and it's Women's Day has been celebrated, and this year the theme is embracing equity in the digital space. So my very specific question is towards Mr. Sami, that how do you suggest that we integrate the services to support small and micro women entrepreneurs specifically? Because the services that have been digitalized has largely not been a part of the simplification or streamlined processes. So what is your esteemed organization thinking about moving forward? And of course, I'd love to hear the Malaysian experience as well, if there is any. Thank you so much.
Mr. Sami, would you like to respond to the last question? That's the only question. The other two were observations, I think. Sure. So.
No, that's a very good question. We are from, as you know, the government has a mandate. The government wants to, the Prime Minister herself has, wants to empower women as much as possible. And Startup Bangladesh, from Startup Bangladesh, we look into women founders that we want to invest in. We also look at startups who are working in a space that supports women in the development, right? But of course, it all goes down back into, if we look into the tech sector itself, we don't see enough women participation, where we are running awareness programs trying to get more women into this particular space, trying to make them understand how technology can be a space that is equitable for men and women both. There's less barrier, I would say, in entry into this particular sector. And this is an awareness campaign that the government is working with, but in reality, there's a lot of support that's required from society as well, from their families and other parts of the sector as well. So it's a continuous development. We are welcome to new ideas. One thing about Startup Bangladesh is that we get the ideas from the youth, from the startups. They come in with these ideas, these great ideas. How can they make this happen? And we fund these initiatives. So from Startup Bangladesh, since we fund both impact as well as profit, we are looking for this initiative. If somebody comes in with a great idea that can help solve this particular problem, this is something we would invest in and try to make our society more equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, in order to have real gender balance, the lady over there. This is the last question. Please introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Thank you so much. I'm Shomi Kaisar, Director at FBCCI. I'll try to be very specific. One comment I want to make first, which is we've seen the innovation in the banking sector in terms of lending loans to women and small, medium entrepreneurs in the last 5 years. And they are getting into it thanks to Bangladesh Bank. They have issued directives to all the commercial banks for lending these loans to the small, medium entrepreneurs, especially in the digital era. My second question is to both SAMI, Startup Bangladesh, and to SME Foundation. In your presentation, sir, we have seen that you've talked about stock taking. We have seen that Startup Bangladesh is also doing stock taking. They have a lot of information about how the SME sector is growing and where we should be mentoring them. So I just want to know, is there any integration between the Startup Bangladesh and SME Foundation in this particular issue on stock taking? Because we do not get enough information and data regarding this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Mafizur Rahman, would you like to respond? Or?
Okay. So I'll respond to this first.
Sure.
So just to let you know that SME Foundation and Startup Bangladesh, we're working closely together. We actually have an MU signing this week that we are signing, and which includes agendas such as this, how we can share this information. Not only that, how can Startup Bangladesh work with SME Foundation to develop the SMEs in Bangladesh, rather through startups or even help some of these SMEs convert new startups. So do you want to add something?
Just one point I would like to add. That is actually stock taking. We have meant here that number one is do we have the SME database in Bangladesh? How many numbers? Probably answer is no, because that figure was in 2013, 7.8 million. I think today it will be more than 10 million, I mean 1 crore. So for that reason, we need to have a database first. And secondly, we are working many departments, actually piecemeal basis. We need to work together. Say Startup Bangladesh, SME Foundation, Joyita Foundation, Department of Youth, and there are so many departments working for the SMEs. But we do not have any coordination. So for that reason, we have mentioned that we need to have this kind of stock taking information, and let's work in a coordinated way. Coordinated approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I can't say no to a director of FBCCI. Please, sir. But this is the last. Please introduce yourself and then ask.
Thank you so much, Kamran Bhai, to give me a chance to say something. My question is to Sami Ahmed. Because you see, our Prime Minister always, when he's in stage or anyhow, she says not to go for any service or go for any. She always suggests the startup people then to start the entrepreneur. as they start their career as entrepreneur. So my question is to Sami, for startup people, those who start the go for entrepreneuring, they are the new, just they'll step. If there any policy for them, that means like you see, those are our now big corporate house, other big business corporate house. They are, say for example, best pharmaceutical company in the almost in Bangladesh or in the world. So they are doing Holud Morris Chanachur like this. What startup do? If it is corporate business, then what startup do the business? How they will start the business? Or this is my question. Is there? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sami, I mean, it's...
Okay, the first thing is that currently Startup Bangladesh, on behalf of the government, we're developing a national startup policy. It's in the final stage of drafting, and then we are doing it with all the startups and venture capital investors in the ecosystem. Together we're making it. So not government only, with private sector together we're building it. That will cover many of the questions that you asked over here. What is a startup? What is the difference between a startup and SME? If somebody wants to become a startup, they want to get into entrepreneurship, and is it the same as a startup? What is the difference, right? So we know that the difference between startup and any other business is startup has an innovative idea through which they can scale up very fast. The demand for that innovative idea is very much in the market. Where does Startup Bangladesh come in? We have different programs from the government to support startups at the early level, at the idea level. But once they are in the market and they are raising, they're able to get a lot of numbers in terms of traction, that's when Startup Bangladesh invests in them as an equity investment. So we don't give loans, we take share in the company. But I think because of lack of time, we can go in details. But in other words, we are, if you even come to our website, you will find a lot of details over there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ghulam Muazzam,
Yes,
you want
just
to
to
add something?
add with your query, historically these kinds of businesses are dealt by the SMEs in Bangladesh. This Holud Morich, Dhoniya Chira, Gura, Muri, that what you would like to actually mention here. But gradually these businesses have been taken over by the large big companies. And whether it is good or bad, it could be good if the supply chain is integrate the SMEs there. But unfortunately, in our supply chain, all these kinds of products, from the raw material production to the distribution, are dealt by the single company. So it is not a good sign for entrepreneurship development, and it is not a good sign for SME development. So unless and until we could actually restrain these kinds of single company-based expansion of these agro-based products, it will rather impact on the market and the competition. And we are sometimes actually affecting how the consumers are being captured and by these big companies in terms of their pricing, in terms of their supply, in terms of their distribution. So they are being affected because of this of their pricing policy and the distribution policies. So in this context, I think, and there are some concerns on the competition policy as well. So I think it is a good time to think that whether some kinds of policy to be formulated, whether in the supply chain, at least mandatorily, SMEs to be incorporated. In terms of the raw material, in terms of the intermediate product development, in terms of the distribution. Otherwise, these kinds of things would be captured by only few companies. That is one part. And just one single point here. And in case of India, they have, in some sectors, they have some upper limit of investments in order to restrain the large big companies to expand those sectors. So we may think of such kinds of policies as well in order to create more space for SMEs in some of the specialized SME sector in Bangladesh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Muazzam. Ladies and gentlemen, we really have come towards the end of this session. But after I conclude, the session chair is going to make his final comments. But before I do that, I would like to thank FBCCI for organizing this event in order to project Bangladesh economy and the investment opportunities over here to the entire world. I would like to thank our keynote presenter, Mr. Mofizur Rahman, all our distinguished panelists over here for engaging in this discussion, and everyone in the audience from home as well as overseas. I would also like to thank Mr. Rejaul Karim Rejnu, a former Vice President of FBCCI, who has been the panel convener for all the logistics for this session. And having said that, may I request all of you to give a big round of applause to our keynote presenter and the panelists. And that concludes my part of the program. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The floor is yours.
Can I speak from here? You're the chair. You decide. Thank you. So before starting my concluding remarks, President of Chittagong Chamber, he wants to talk for the 30 seconds.
Yes, 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I give thanks to the President of FBCCI, Mr. Joshima Ahmed, who is present here. Another is one thing, coordination is very important. I think coordination between the chambers, association, government officials, industry minister, Bangladesh Bank is very, very important to enhance the SN. There's my humble submission.
Thank you, Mr. Mahualam. I'm going to be very brief about my concluding remarks because we are running out of time. It is 2:20, so everybody is waiting for the lunch. At the beginning, I just want to say thank you to keynote speaker of today's session, and as well as all the panelists and my audience, because I think today's discussion is a very lively discussion, and we have found a lot of relevant issues which we need to address to develop the SME sector in Bangladesh. The importance of SMEs in economic development in any country is very important issues, and from today's discussion we found that we are lagging behind about the contribution of the SME in our GDP growth. If you compare to India and other neighboring country and our competing country, for example, if you think about the Vietnam's, the total GDP contribution of the SME is 45%. Even the Sri Lanka, the contribution is 40%. On the other end, in Bangladesh case, is only, I think, 25 to 30%. But, you know, we need to have a appropriate policy to develop the SMEs. In today's discussion, there is a lot of issues coming out. I just want to say that because if you think about the SME sector or any business sectors, there is a ecosystems. So in this ecosystem, there is a lot of components which plays very important roles, and I think these components is interrelated and interdependent. So you need to have appropriate policies for every component. For example, if you think about the financing, I think the financing is the major problem for our SMEs. Yes, Bangladesh Bank over the last few years, because the Deputy Governor said that the Bangladesh Bank gave emphasis to the SMEs since 2009. Can you think about it? Only 14 years ago, we think about the importance of the SME in the economic development of Bangladesh. But I must give the thanks to the Bangladesh Bank, because over the last 2-3 years during the pandemic and the new governors, after taking charge of the governorship within 7 days, he declared 25,000 crore of I think revolving fund, and the deputy governor also said that they are going to increase it to 50,000 crore taka. But I think it is a very small amount in terms of the demand of the finance SME needs in Bangladesh. But as SME chairman, wherever I go, I found that the main problem is getting the loan from the bank, financial institution. I don't want to blame the financial institution, because they have to comply when they want to disburse the loan. But I think we need to think about indigenous, customized lending policy, because the compliance issues we are looking for when we are going to giving the loan, it is very difficult for our SMEs, because traditionally our SME is informal. they don't have the documentation. But I'm not going to patronize our SME organization. I do think that they have to be formalized. But you know, we have to give them a time for the formalization of their business. In the meantime, our banks has to be innovative and customized for giving the loan. And I believe that the Bangladesh Bank will give a special emphasis about the formulating new policies or for the customized financial products for the SMEs. Another thing I think which we do not mention today is in terms of customs duty, tax, VAT, income tax and others duties, I think it is not favorable for the SMEs organization in Bangladesh. If you look into all the tax policies in Bangladesh, most of the cases, big companies, big organization who has the large and loud voice, you know, in Bangladesh, they will getting the all sort of benefit. For example, RNG, for example, jute manufacturer association, they are getting the lots of financial incentive from the government. But what about the SMEs organization? They don't get any benefit, very little benefit from the government. So I think our tax policy has to be revisited. Particularly, you know, after the COVID and the new global political situation and global trade system, I think it is going to be changed. So we need to, yes, we want to be global, we want to be global player, you know, but you also think about the localization. For that case, I think we have to give lot of tax benefit, customs duty benefits and other benefits and some sort of protection to our SME organization so that SME organization can provide backward and forward linkage services to the big organization. And Dr. Muajjem mentioned about that our big corporation, they want to do all sort of business. I don't know what our competitive commission is doing, because there should have some sort of rules and regulation and formalities about the investment amount, about the doing business in Bangladesh. So I think we need to look into this matter as well. Another thing is technology, because technology is changing rapidly and without adopting the technology, no business will survive. But technology is expensive, and technology also need lot of knowledge for running this technology. And our SME organization and SME entrepreneur and their employee, they have the lackings of this knowledge. So I think dissemination of knowledge, training facility have to be extended. And in that case, government has a lot of project to provide the training facility, and SME Foundation also providing lot of training facility through our chambers and association. But one thing I found that our private organization, our chambers, they are not keen to invest in training facilities. I think they need to think about it. But the concept of low skill and low wages based economy, I think is not sustainable for us. We need to invest on our employee. We need to have a technology based, knowledge based employee to compete with the 21st century's world market. Another thing I should mention about the compliance issue. It has been ignored, particularly in the SME sector, because without compliance it is very difficult to produce the quality product, to ensure the betterment of the employee working in the SME sector, and as well as to provide the better services to the customers and to increase the product quality. So I think the compliance issue has to be considered. Another things I just want to mention, and I'm not going to take more time. I think private sector, they should come forward, because I must thanks the Mr. Joshim, the president of the Bangladesh Federation Chamber of Commerce, because over the last 2 years I found him that he is very concerned about the SMEs, and in lot of government policy meetings and other meetings I found that he raised his voice, and he also gave a slot to us about the SME development. And I'm requesting all the chambers, all the federation, all the association, please raise your voice for our SME organization, because without your voice it is very difficult to change the mindset of the government and as well as the private sector entrepreneurs. And I think today's discussion is very fruitful discussion we have, and with this new suggestions and this policy reform which has been suggested by the panelists here will help us to formulate the policy and will also give us new insight in our SME development. With these few words, I'm concluding my remarks, and I also thanks all of you to listen to me. Thanks a lot.
I would like to thank our dais members for being a part of today's discussion and would request them to stay on the dais as we will now begin the handover of the crest. I would like to request Mr. Mohammad Mahbubur Rahman Patwari, Director FBCCI, to come over to the stage to hand over the crest to Dr. Mohammad Masudur Rahman, Chairperson, SME Foundation, our session chair of today's discussion. I would like to request Mr. Amin Helali, Vice President FBCCI, to come to the stage instead of Mr. Mohammad Mahbubur Rahman Patwari to hand over the crest to our session chair, Dr. Mohammad Masudur Rahman, Chairperson, SME Foundation. I would now like to request Mr. Muhammad Anwar Sadat Sarkar, Director FBCCI, to come over to the stage and hand over the crest to the moderator of our session, Mr. Kamran T. Rahman, Senior Vice President, MCCI. I would now like to request Mr. MGR Nasir Majumdar, Director FBCCI, to come over to the stage and hand over the crest to Mr. Mofizur Rahman, our keynote speaker and Managing Director of SME Foundation. I would like to request Mr. Abu Hossein Bhuiya Ranu, Director FBCCI, to come over to the stage instead of Mr. Nasir Majumdar to hand over the crest to our keynote speaker, Mr. Mofizur Rahman. Now, I would like to ask Mr. Bozlur Rahman, Director FBCCI, to come over to the stage and hand over the crest to Mr. Mahbubul Alam, President, Chattogram Chamber of Commerce and Industry, our esteemed panelist for today's session. I would now like to request Ms. Shomi Kaiser, Director FBCCI, to come over to the stage and hand over the memento of appreciation to Mr. Mohammad Samir Sattar, President, Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industries, and our panelist for this session. I would now like to request Mr. Rejaul Islam Milon, Director FBCCI, to come over to the stage and hand over the crest to Mr. Abu Farah Mohammad Nasir, Deputy Governor, Bangladesh Bank. I would now like to request Mr. Abu Murshid Chaudhuri Khoka, President of Cox's Bazar Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to come over to the stage and hand over the crest to Dr. Khondokar Golam Muazzam, Research Director, Center for Policy Dialogue. Next, I would like to request Mr. Dilip Kumar Agarwala, Director, FBCCI, to come over to the stage and hand over the memento of appreciation to Mr. Sami Ahmed, Managing Director, Startup Bangladesh. I would now like to request Mr. Rejaul Karim Rajnu, CIP, Director of FBCCI, to hand over the crest to Her Excellency Ms. Hasna Muhammad Hashim, High Commissioner of Malaysia to Bangladesh. Lastly, I would like to request our guest of honor, Mr. Mahbubul Alam, President, Chattogram Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to hand over the crest to Mr. Rejaul Karim Rajnu, Convener of SME Subcommittee, Director, FBCCI. With that, our today's panel discussion on SMEs development, leveraging SMEs for vibrant supply chain linkage and productivity spillovers come to an end. We will now request all the dais members to stay on the stage for a group photo. Thank you. With that, our today's panel session comes to an end. I would like to thank our dais members for being a part of our discussion on SMEs development. I would also like to thank the audience members for being a part of this session. Our next session, titled Tourism and Hospitality, Market Readiness and Opportunities for Foreign Direct Investment (FDI) in Tourism Industry, will begin shortly in this hall. Thank you.